Jill Duggar Dillard and her husband Derick made this claim in Shiny Happy People.
In the whole run of your time being a star, you ever get a distribution?
No. I never received any payout. No check, no cash, no nothing. For 7.5 years of my adult life, I was never paid.
You're going to be shocked to hear the real details of what compensation Jill and Derick actually received before they made this statement, and what they have received up to this point. Just before that clip, there is this.
19 Kids and Counting was a juggernaut for that network, so it's not like the money wasn't there.
It is normal for the father to take all the money because the wife doesn't get it, the children don't get it, they're under their father's authority, so of course he has it.
So the narrative that Shiny Happy People producers are creating here is that JimBob Duggar was a greedy and uncaring father who hoarded all the money his family made and left his children with no compensation at all. That is the narrative they want you to believe. And look how they did it. Here's another example. The producers orchestrated what they wanted the audience to focus on in this article by highlighting the words they wanted you to read and didn't highlight the words that didn't fit their narrative. Just look right below what they highlighted here. It all went to JimBob, who invested some of it for the family and handed out the rest. I found that very interesting. What does that mean, he invested some of it for the family and handed out the rest? Then I noticed this other part when Jill and Derick were talking about the text message he characterized as a threat that he anonymously received.
I got threats like someone reached out anonymously on a very lengthy text message. It was just bizarre. I did report it to the police department.
The producers did the same thing here. They made the words that they wanted the audience to see in bold font that would fit the narrative they were trying to create. But look at this part of the text message that is not highlighted. It says, "I know that he gave you that house and many other perks." So what is the writer referring to here? According to Jill and Derick in Shiny Happy People and in several other interviews online that they have done, they didn't receive any compensation at all. To quote Jill, "No check, no cash, no nothing." My first thought was, if they received no nothing, what house did they get? I'd say a house is not no nothing, so I started digging. I asked questions of people who would know. It was shocking what I found. Talk about misrepresenting the truth. This is the information I was able to get from more than one anonymous source. I'll start with what went on at the beginning of their TV appearances back in 2004 and go through the present. The TLC network first did a few shows with the family that were documentaries. These were not really reality TV shows, so to speak, but literally were documentaries about a large Christian family and how they lived their lives. Networks do not pay people to be in documentaries, but they did receive some perks, such as groceries and other gifts for the family, but no cash payment at all. JimBob and Michelle decided to cooperate with the request from the Discovery Channel and TLC Network because they saw this as an opportunity to spread the Christian message and to show the world that children are a blessing. They made sure that the network agreed that they would not edit out their faith.
We prayed about it and we thought, well, maybe this is an opportunity to share with the world that children are a blessing and a gift from God. And so we went back to them and we said, we will do this documentary with you as long as you don't edit out our faith.
When Discovery and TLC came back and wanted to do a reality TV show with the family, JimBob was able to negotiate with them to receive monetary compensation. He was able to negotiate a contract every year or two, and all the family members signed these contracts as they got older, as usual, each year. JimBob had from the beginning used the money they received to provide for the family and give to others, and the rest was invested in real estate for each of the children to benefit from as adults. The family had discussions about these investments, and all the older children were aware that the money that was allocated for each of them was put into these investments because it was the best way to grow the money. Jill knew this, and so did Derick when they got married. I'm going to give some real specific numbers here in a minute about what Jill and Derick actually received before they began to demand more from the Duggar family. So stay tuned for that. But first, what did the comment "handed out the rest" mean exactly in that article I showed earlier? I found out that JimBob and Michelle gave regularly to missionaries to build churches and orphanages overseas and help widows and fatherless children. I've even personally talked to a widow who was provided for when she needed it, a young person who had lost her parent who needed a car to get to work, and the Duggars gave them one, and a few others who have told me how the Duggars found they were in need and gave freely to them to help fulfill their needs. So literally, the Duggars handed out the rest in order to bless others. This alone does not show a spirit of hoarding cash for themselves, as Shiny Happy People was trying to make it seem. But back to Jill and her husband Derick. Jill seems to be the only one of the 19 who even suggests that they were not compensated in any way from the wealth their family accumulated in the TV show. And I found that this was because that just isn't true. When Jill and Derick first got married, Derick had an accounting job with the Walmart Corporation. Since Jill was the first of the Duggar children to get married, JimBob needed to figure out how to navigate getting the money to Jill that was her part of the real estate investments, and had a discussion with Derick to let him know that at some point they would cash out the real estate investments so Jill would have quite a bit of savings. Before they were married, Jill had full use of the family debit card so she could go out to eat anytime, buy fuel, clothes, and etc. Once they were married, JimBob said she would need to give that card back so Derick could begin to be her provider. But here's the kicker. JimBob wanted to give as much as possible to get Jill and Derick off on a great financial start. So he offered to allow them to live in this newly renovated 4,500 square foot home rent-free. Not only did they live in this gorgeous home rent-free, but JimBob also paid all the utilities, bought Jill a car, purchased her a $15,000 harp, and paid the $5,000 fee for her to go through midwife school. This was all after she was already married to Derick. But that's not all. He also bought all the furniture for the large home and gave it to them. He paid for Jill's cell phone bill. At one point, Derick quit his job at Walmart and announced they were going to be missionaries in Central America. JimBob then bought them new furniture and appliances and an air conditioner for the new mission house in El Salvador. In this next clip, Jill and Derick said they asked TLC to cover their out-of-pocket costs for the birth of their son Israel because they had done filming during the labor and the filming was used on the show.
We asked TLC to pay us enough just to cover what our out-of-pocket costs were for health insurance for Israel's birth.
They said they paid the family. Paid the family means we don't get anything at that point. I said, well, we paid your dad, so take it up with him.
But it is not mentioned that when TLC didn't pay for those expenses, JimBob paid $10,000 toward their ministry fund to cover those costs. But listen to what Jill says about not being paid anything up until they left the show and that they only got perks when they traveled.
We wanted to exercise those same principles and purpose to stay out of debt. And up until that point, we had positioned ourselves to be able to do that. Jill's been able to do a lot of blogging.
Social media advertising and stuff like that too, YouTube channel, all of those types of things. So those are definitely helpful with supplementing income and living off of savings. So also up until around the time we left the show, we hadn't been paid for anything. Of course, there were perks that came along with filming. You know, if you were traveling or whatever, they might cover those expenses and stuff. And we were grateful for those, but yeah, we hadn't been paid until we were like really pressing about it and ended up like getting an attorney involved and stuff. And
yeah,
so,
basically once we got an attorney involved and we were able to recover a portion at least of what Jill should have been paid up until the time we left the show. Even if in the end it probably ended up being a little bit more than minimum wage at most,
yeah,
we were able to recover at least something.
Yeah.
What I have described so far, does that sound like just perks when they traveled? And they said they lived off savings. Where did that come from? Did they have savings because they didn't have to pay rent, utilities, the cost of Jill's education, her cell phone bills, a free car, and etc.? Is that how they had savings to live off of? I know my husband and I would have a much larger savings account right now had we not had to pay all those kinds of expenses, wouldn't you? Even after Jill and Derick came back from El Salvador, they again were allowed to live in another beautiful 4,500 square foot home, rent-free, with all utilities paid, until they moved to seminary housing for Cross Church. Now don't go away yet, there's much more. But so far, does this sound like they were given no check, no cash, no nothing? It sure doesn't sound like that to me. During the years 2009 through the beginning of 2013, all the Duggar children earned appearance fees for participating on the shows. JimBob invested these funds for them into real estate and also paid the taxes for them on these funds. During that time frame, $136,576 was allocated to Jill, and $33,587 was paid in taxes for her. During 2013, JimBob formed MAD Incorporated, and it was formed as an official family business, and the children started receiving W-2 wages for hours worked. They also received a K-1 from the company. There was an amount of the W-2 withheld for taxes, and a percentage was actually paid to the children. Jill's gross wage was $25,425, and her net pay was $6,493.99. Remember, this was not a full-time job for her. In 2016 to 2017, Derick also received payments and was paid a total of $12,525 in gross wages and $8,935 in net pay. Again, not a full-time job by any means for him either. There was also a total of $144,435 in K-1 earnings from the corporation, and $23,000 was withheld for tax payments made for them. During the time that Jill and Derick were deciding to leave the show, they were paid initially $80,907 and later received another $175,000 as the property investments allocated for Jill were cashed out. So to sum it up, cash directly paid to Jill and Derick was $301,836. The taxes were already paid on that money for them in the amount of $58,464. So the almost $302,000 is actually all spendable money they received. The taxes were already paid on it. The total sum of cash that they received after the real estate investments were liquidated for them was not including all the other benefits that they had received when Jill made the statement, "No check, no cash, no nothing." All the compensation that I explained earlier, which included the free rent for over 2 years, all utilities paid, cell phone bills paid, all the furniture given to them, and a car, a $10,000 donation to their ministry account, a $15,000 HARP, midwife education paid for more furniture, and etc., is all in addition to the $360,000.
I never received any payout. No check, no cash, no nothing.
I really hope that Jill especially will see that what she has done by airing her grievances in public has only been harmful to her, her family, and the cause of Christianity generally. And that maybe she will take a look at the entitled attitude she and Derick have displayed by complaining and falsely claiming that they are some kind of victims of JimBob's monetary hoarding. If that's victimhood, I'll take it. It's a lot more monetary compensation than most people listening to this video could ever have dreamed of. The Duggar children have also received monetary benefits from their appearances on the show through the cashing out and selling of some of the family's real estate investments and have started their own businesses. Even the spouses and grandchildren have received paychecks for participating in the shows. JimBob is a greedy, hoarding father? That's just another false narrative in Shiny Happy People. Next time, there are over 100 slanderous lies and misrepresentations that I have found in the 4-part Shiny Happy People docuseries. I will chronologically show each of them in the series to come. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.